got direct access to Yahusha Elohim, Biblically transitioning into our Elohim. Open portal door to Yahusha Elohim. We can hear Yahusha Elohim. Oh, we've got direct access to Yahusha Elohim, Biblically transitioning into our Elohim. Open portal door to Yahusha Elohim. We can hear Yahusha Elohim. We can hear Yahusha Elohim. Whoa, 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 whoa. We can hear Yahusha Elohim. Yahusha Elohim.
So what's going on in the Middle East? Why is everybody harping and reporting and misconstruing all the events that are going on in the Middle East? And now all the believers are getting on the bandwagon too, and it's all they can talk about. Who's on this side and who's on that side? Who's Israel? Who's Palestine? Who are the Israelites? Who are the Palestinians? Where did they come from? Their blood covenants, their land rights. Who owns this part of the land? Who owns that part of the land? Oh, the Israelites. Which tribe is really there? Which of the 12 tribes is there? Which ones are lost? You know, the Palestinians, all those wicked Palestinians, those on the West Bank. Oh no, those Philistines of old. You know, like pulling back old, ancient bloodlines. Why? Because CNN, Al Jazeera, Joe Rogan, who? Because all these creeps told you to? Like, why are we getting involved in the affairs of this life? Why, on this terrestrial plane of carnal physical planet Earth, in this dimension, not heaven, not spiritual, why are we getting involved when the goal is to become a spiritual being? The goal is to attain eternal life. Why are we arguing about old covenants and old land rights? Why won't anybody stand up and say nothing to do with the Middle East has any relevance today? That is not where he's going to, when Messiah comes back, that's not where he's going to put his feet on the Mount of Olives. He's going to frackle up this whole dimension, the earth, the planets, the sun, the moon, the stars. Why would where he places his feet matter? He's going to destroy it all. And all the bloodlines and all the flesh that see him. Unless they're 99.99% overcome and ready to be transitioned, transformed in the twinkling of an eye. We will be changed to become those ascended heavenly beings, like celestial beings, like Yahusha did. So you can see all the arguments going back in the Middle East, all coming from Abraham and this covenant made with Abraham as the Hebrews, and he was allowed a certain amount of land as far as the eye could see, and they've mapped out borders to it, and Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes in Egypt, and then they came out of Egypt to the promised land, and they got their promised land back, and they took it by force eventually finally through David. They took it all back through force. There are a couple of rogue towns here and there. The Philistines were kept at bay. David brought peace, and through Solomon, by the time he'd brought peace, David was just knackered and haggard and on his deathbed, and so Solomon got to reap the benefits of the peace. Israel had peace under Solomon. The temple was built, the palace, you can see the models of it, how grand. Never been that grand. It was the pinnacle of their success. So the Jews want to get back to that. That's what all the wars are about. But we know that was an old covenant with Adam, with Noah, with Abraham, with Moses, when they went into the land, with David, all sorts of cats in the Old Testament. There were old covenants. Yahushua came along and fulfilled all those covenants in himself. All the blessings and the curses, all the promises and inheritances he fulfilled in himself. It's no longer set apart land over there. There's no war for set apart land. The only war mentioned in the New Covenant writings is the war for men and women's hearts. That is the true war that's going on. That is the only set apart property worth fighting over. Satan knows it. Why won't you click into it? Satan knows. That's why he has set up his abomination of desolation, which is not some physical thing. It's not some historical thing. It's got to be spiritually fulfilled. It's spiritual. It's a spiritual abomination to cause you in your flesh to go against everything good, everything righteous, all the fruits of love, the fruits of the Spirit, the 9 fruits, and the 2 royal laws. It's there to make us go against them. It's got billions and billions of people fooled and controlled. That is the plan. Satan is achieving it. He's not stupid. He thinks he can beat Yahusha. And he knows that time is short. He knows all these things. Demons know who Yahusha is. Demons know that Yahusha is Elohim. Satan knows that Yahusha is Elohim. Why won't you come into it? Why won't you come into the real war in the heavenlies? It's a war over men and women's hearts. Instead of looking at the Middle East, commenting on the Middle East, getting your little bib in there and putting your 2 bobs worth in about the Middle East. Who cares what you think? Who cares what your political aspirations are? Who cares about what your opinions are of society or politics? What? Who cares? We've got to be transitioned. We've got to become spiritual beings. We have to have a baptism of spirit through Yahusha Elohim. We have to follow him. So all these crackpots out there having their opinions about the Middle East and the wars and the land, and it's not really this much land, it's this much land, and that's not really where the threshing floor is, and that's not really where the... Who cares? Who gives a toss? Who cares? It's not the relevance. Even Paul said, stop arguing about natural lineage and bloodlines and things like that, ancestry. Stop arguing about the physical, carnal things. And Paul knew. Paul was amazing. I'm loving everything I read from Paul lately. Paul is just amazing. I mean, he wasn't against the Jews because he was one. He wasn't against the old covenant because he passionately had learnt it and was raised in it. And he wasn't actually technically a murderer. He wasn't a savage barbarian going out there slashing people for the fun of it. He was ingrained in the old covenant, the Torah of Moses. He was ingrained in all that. And that Torah said, if you are idolatrous, you put to death, you put under the curse of the law, and you're executed by stones generally, casting of stones. He was doing what the law said, the first covenant. He was being obedient because there's only one Elohim, and it's Yahuah, and everybody else, including these rabble here that are worshipping some wacko Messiah, they're all in idolatry, so I need to go and stone them. He was being obedient. So clearly, the resurrected Yahusha, had to appear to him and show him who he truly is. Who is Elohim really now? Now that I've come, morphed in the flesh, I came and I died and I've been resurrected. I'm seated on the heavenly throne on high, and this Paul character is still out there killing people thinking he's being obedient. What am I going to do? I'm going to appear to him and show him who Elohim really is. And what did Paul experience from that encounter? Unlike a lot of people who just heard him or whatever, Paul met Yahusha. He was blinded from the experience. He met the resurrected Elohim, Messiah. He knew who Elohim really was. He felt it. It just burst through him, the power. A bit like Moses coming down from the mountain. He'd met Yahusha too. These people who met Yahusha, they knew he was Elohim. They knew it. So Paul took everything that was old that's why it took him years to just work all this out in his head and listening to this Yahusha's voice and the Spirit, and eventually he wrote the greater part of the New Testament because he was the one to take everything doctrinal and serious and heavy and the meatier matters of the word and convert them into the new covenant. That's what he did. He explained them. The other disciples were mainly fishermen and tradesmen and people like that. And they knew Yahusha and they wrote some phenomenal stuff, but they didn't have the mental capacity and intelligence like Paul did, because he was a scholar. He was he was a teacher, a Pharisee, that sort of type. So the things he writes and talks about are amazing. He knew the old covenant inside out. All the land arguments, and territories and covenants and things that were told and promised to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David. He knew all of it, and he's written it in all his works and then explained what it means to us today in the new covenant. under Yahusha's blood. So he knew. He was looking for the eternal city. So was Abraham, actually. So was all the prophets of old that met Yahusha. They were looking for him. They weren't satisfied with the natural carnal things anymore. So people are telling these stories and reading into the stories all these doctrines that aren't true. Men and women's opinions, because they're not spiritual. They have not been through the vein. They do not accept that Yahusha is Elohim. Therefore, they do not know. They're walking around blind. Don't know where the narrow gate is. They don't know where deliverance is found. They have to convince themselves that they're delivered by doing water baptism, by doing 10 commandments, by doing 7 feasts, by doing a weekly Sabbath, by wearing this, by blowing that, by lighting this, by eating this. They have to convince themselves through all their outward entrapments that they are delivered. But they know, if you're honest with yourself, you're not delivered, because you know what still controls you. There is a spirit in your flesh. It's called an abomination of desolation, controlling your flesh, seated in the set apart place. For all you temple tabernacle junkies, you know where the temple oracle, the set apart place, is, and who was supposed to be seated there on top of the ark, the mercy seat. You know who was supposed to be there, the spirit of the only one living Elohim. And who's seated there now in billions and billions of people? Satan. That is the prophetic fulfillment of the abomination of desolation. And there's only one way to get that spirit out of you. Through a different spirit. Through the one true Elohim spirit, and his fire will burn it out. Because you have to choose it. It's ingrained. Its tentacles has wrapped itself around every part of your mind and heart and desires and feelings and decisions that you make. You've been raised in it all your life, this abomination. You probably didn't even know you were that bad. Didn't even know that it was an abomination. But when you meet Yahusha and you become spiritual, you go in the narrow gate, you realize there's still a tentacle wrapped around. Look what I did there. Look what I said there. I don't feel like that. You see what rises up in you. That's the fire cutting off, burning all those tentacles off you so that you can be free. Free of sin. Even Paul said, don't use your freedom as an opportunity to sin, but use it as an opportunity to be free. Beautiful. Yahusha's showing us in these last days, there's only a couple of years left, guys. If you're looking to the natural land, you're being ripped off, you're being hoodwinked by the Jews. The Jews want you to feel sorry for them because they're really the ones worth the inheritance. They're getting the inheritance. Anybody that comes against them, those wicked Palestinians, those people from, who was Ishmael, those people from the Philistines, those people, those Muslims, those South Bank people, all these names that they bring into the mix on the news, they want you to get all involved in it, into the affairs of this life. Well, Paul again said to his mate Timothy, his protege, if you're taking this seriously, mate, take your eyes off the affairs of this life. Take your eyes off the news, the politics. Take your eyes off it. It's not helping you. It's not helping you at all. Who cares about your abortion, gun rights, marriage, equality, LGBT? Who cares about all the stuff going on out there? That's carnal, that's fleshly, that's the world. There's a narrow gate and a vein of deliverance that he's put us on to run our race. Take your eyes off all the nonsense that's going on around you, because it's an entrapment. It's there to trip you over. A wise soldier does not get involved in the affairs of this life in order to please the one who enlisted him. But if we don't even realize there's a battle going on, if we already think we're delivered because we got dunked in water, we don't even face, we have to buckle up our armor so tight every morning, because even the ones that we love most are going to, try and murder us in our sleep. If we don't face what's going on, are you taking this seriously? Are you overcoming? Will you filter into the wilderness? Will you become a celestial being, as Yahusha is? He's above and beyond all celestialism. He is Elohim. But we are terrestrial, we are lower, we are fallen, decaying beings, waiting for death. And many of us over the years have died. People have died, even those in Yahushua, and they're awaiting resurrection. If they made it, they'll be resurrected when he comes back. If they didn't make it, the only second chance is death. You don't get a second chance. The only second resurrection is at the great white throne judgment, to die. So I just want to encourage you to, why should we not be looking at the Middle East? And why should we? Because it's like a snowball effect. You look at this and you look at that, and you look at the young people and you look at the old people, and you look at the politics and you look at society, and you look at your local council and you look at the legislations, and you can start to worry. Because when it's over somewhere else, another country, you're a big whoop. But then it starts filtering in. What if this starts coming into your country? If that happens to there, and then Russia does this, and then Japan does this, and then the Ukraine does this, and then America will do this, and then Australia, which is where I am, then it might come to here, and then how's it going to affect me? Oh no! And that abomination in your flesh is trying to worry you and cause stress. Worry is a sin. Stress is a sin. That's not belief. So, if you want to flick on the news and watch what's going on, that's cool. But I'm just saying, getting involved in it, having heavy opinions about it, and, it's all natural history. And it's an old covenant. They're still arguing about the old covenant. They don't even face, majority of Jews don't even receive the fact that there's a Messiah, that he came, died for them, and is now seated on high as Elohim. No, they're still pumping the Father image, the God, the Yahuah only. Well, they call him Yahweh or Adonai, or Christianized form of Jehovah, or whatever they call him. They're still worshipping the Father. They're not worshipping Yahusha. And even those who have incorporated Yahusha into their dialogue, into their dualism, but then there's a spirit too, so it's really a trinity. They've incorporated it all into a trinity. Even though they pump teachings against the trinity, they're still believing in a trinity, because there's a Father and there's a Son and there's a Spirit, all doing this sneaky stuff. So it's, it's all nonsense. Don't be worrying about what you see. Yahushua promises, if we overcome, we will inherit this. We will inherit the white stone. We'll be a pillar in the new structure. We will be this. We will be that. We will be able to eat from the hidden manna. We will have access to the tree of life. We will be given Yahushua, because all those things are Yahusha. We'll be given more and more and more direct, greater access to Yahushua, which transforms us, transitions us into an immortal being. The more flesh we put off, the more flesh we overcome, the more spiritual and alive and full of his fruits of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and loving our neighbor and loving Elohim. The more we put on righteousness, the less of flesh we're interested in. We are becoming new creations. Yahushua became a new creation. He abandoned his old form, his old image. And that's who they're still arguing and fighting about and quoting scriptures about. His old form, his old word, his Old Testament, old covenant, old blood, old temples, old tabernacles, old land, old ark, old furniture, old blood. They can have the whole bloody blood. Yahusha's blood is energized. It's supernatural. It just it cleanses you. And so this is the problem. They're so ingrained in the word, the old covenant word, that they think that because Abraham, and even before Abraham, because the bloodlines were so important, do not let your daughters or sons go and marry women from that tribe over there, because they're feral Canaanites and they're going to pollute the bloodline. And people think that bloodline matters because it was harped about so much in Genesis, and by Exodus he was starting to lay off it a bit, but in Genesis he was really harping about the bloodline. But do you know why? Because Messiah was to come through a clean royal bloodline, and the bloodline was royal from a Hebrew source, which was Abraham, the first Hebrew. That's why Paul said he was the first from Abraham, and he was also the son of David, from the royal line, letting him know that he was foremost a Hebrew, second most he was from the tribe of Judah. He was the king in the royal line. That was all it was about, to set the stage for Yahushua. That's all it was for. What other purpose today is bloodline? we're all bastardized mongrels that have been interbred so many times through the last few millennia that, you know, if Adam and Eve had jet black skin, the color of the soil, and my skin's white as white, then what the hell's gone on the last 6,000 years? You know, if I was looking to be in royal bloodline, I'd be the last pick. I've been interbred so much that there's no black left in me. So you can see it's got nothing to do with bloodline, nothing to do with Jew or Gentile, free or slave. It's all about becoming the bride, the true bride, the wise bride, taking on this vein of deliverance every single day, every moment of the day, in every single thought, as Christopher said the other night, arresting every thought so that what you let go in will only be good things that come out. Arresting your thoughts. So important. That is the worship, 24/7, 365. That is the true Moedim festivals. That is the true Sabbath rest. That is the true Shemitah cycle. That is the true ongoing behavior, the true Jubilee as well, because it sets you free. So it's ongoing. That is the true worship. Everything that was in the old creation from Adam has to be transitioned into the new creation, the second Adam, which is Yahusha. So the minute Yahusha put his foot on this earth as a transformed new creation, Elohim, Yahusha, things started to change. People didn't know straight away. He called 12 disciples to start whispering this stuff to them and letting them know who he really was. And people who he healed, they knew he was Elohim, but hey, watch out. Don't tell anyone yet. My time has not come yet. Even after he died and was ascended, after he'd stopped the wind and the waves and had been transfigured on the mountain and all these things that he'd done, and he was transfigured, ascended, and seated back on high, even after all that, they still spent the next 100 years arguing and debating who he really was. The 12 disciples and all the 120 and all the rabble that went out from Jerusalem to do the Great Commission to tell the world, all those people had a task. They were constantly in argument, mainly with the Jews, because the Gentiles didn't know any better. The nations didn't care. They would just happily either rejected or accepted him. But the Jews, all those lost sheep of the tribe of Israel, all those, they had a big problem with it. And so all the book of Acts is a big transition, a big mishmash of what's old and what's new, and this is supposed to be new, but they're still behaving the old, and we went to the Jews first, and we went to the synagogues next, and then we went to the Gentiles, and the Gentiles rejoiced. Oh, wow. Maybe, as Paul realized, maybe this message is going to the Gentiles. Maybe they're rebuilding the tabernacle of David, the booth of David, the tent, the praise tent, which was for all nations. Another prophecy being fulfilled. Jew and Gentile are all welcome. We have to be engrafted into the covenant, new covenant of Yahusha, not engrafted into one of the 12 tribes of Yashrael. We have to be engrafted into Yahusha. He's the only tribe, only bloodline, only master and Elohim that matters. So get your eyes off the Middle East. It's rubbish. We're not waiting for some nuclear holocaust, all that doom and gloom. I hope you're not out there building your doomsday bunker. It's not going to matter. The elite intelligentsia and the billionaires of the world are building, and they're trying to build off-planet ones too, boring into the caverns and caves of the earth, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers underground, deep underground military bases with huge drills the size of buildings, to take semi-trailers and Mack trucks through. They're building all this stuff underground so that if there's a global flood or a global fire, they'll be rescued. They'll be safe and secure. They think they can escape the day of wrath. They think they can escape the return of Yahusha. They don't realize it's going to frackle. He's going to frackle the whole dimension, not just the planet. The sun, moon, and stars, all the elements will melt with intense heat down to an elemental dust. Everything in this dimension was created from dust, and it's going to return to dust and then disappear, vaporize, because he's going to create something brand new. That's what we should be focusing our eyes on. As Abraham, Isaac, looking at the master, at the new city whose builder and maker is Elohim, That's where we should be looking to bring forth the true worship of spiritual, true, loving behavior. That's enough for today, guys. Get your eyes off the world and the affairs of this life and get into Yahusha's vein. Go through the spirit and fire, and you'll know that you know that you know you know everything you need to know.
We've got direct access to Yahushua Elohim, by the lead transitioning into our Elohim. Open portal door to Yahushua Elohim. We can hear Yahushua Elohim. Oh, we've got direct access to Yahushua Elohim, by the lead transitioning into our Elohim. Open portal door to Yahushua Elohim. We can hear